Hey y'all, this is your girl Tashin, and I'm back with another video. Yes, so we're gonna be reacting to what if Australia had the population of China? What? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that do happen. I mean, it's gonna happen. Like the population in every country is growing. Okay, I had watched a video. It was like one of those Google videos when they were showing the population. It was like one of those charts, and it's showing you from 1960 or something like that going up to like 2022, and it was showing the population is growing in every country. So I like I said, I I wouldn't be surprised. So let's get straight to the video.
We will call this new country of 1.4 billion people New Australia. So today Australia's population sits at around 26 million or so, meaning that humans are actually quite easily outnumbered by kangaroos, whose population is estimated to be around 34 million. China, on the other hand, the world's most populated country, has a population of around 1.4 billion. That's around 55 times larger than Australia. Now, Australia could be said to be severely underpopulated. It is, after all, the 6th largest country in the world, and yet has a population lower than the world's 3 most populated cities by urban area. Only Mongolia of Asia has a lower population density than that of Australia, at around 2 and 3 people per kilometres squared. Australia's largest state, Western Australia, has a population density even lower than Mongolia's, at just over 1 person per kilometres squared, with Perth making up the vast majority of that population density. China, conversely, has a population of around 1.4 billion. It is the 3rd or 4th, depending on disputed territories, largest country in the world, with a population density of around 149 people per kilometres squared. So what could Australia look like if it were to suddenly adopt the population of China? So first things first, let's say Australia's newly adopted population were to arrive on the shores down under and equally split themselves across the 6 states of Australia in the percentages that currently exist. So that's 32% New South Wales, 26% Victoria, 20% Queensland, 10% Western Australia, 7% South Australia, 2% Tasmania, and 1% Northern Territory. This now means that New South Wales's population has increased from around 8 million to a staggering 450 million. Victoria would go from around 6.5 to 360 million, Queensland 5.3 to 280 million, Western Australia 2.8 to 140 million, South Australia 1.8 to nearly 100 million, and Tasmania around 500,000 to 28 million. And finally, Northern Territory, which, although not an official state, makes up an insignificant 1% of Australia's population. This region would still have a pretty decent population of around 14 million, more than the likes of countries such as Tunisia, Belgium, or Sweden. This really just puts it into perspective as to how many people really live in China. In this made-up scenario, New South Wales now has a population larger than...
I want to start the video here because I don't know how I feel about... I mean, population is something... When there's a lot of people, it's hard to control the people. But the only problem with that, when you have a lot of people in certain countries, it's just the country is not going to be nice anymore. It's going to be a lot of tall buildings because you got to give these people housing. And it's like... You can't really enjoy the country, if that makes sense, because there's so much people and everyone needs housing, and I feel like it'll be more problems because now you have outsiders coming in, and I just feel like they will destroy the country. You know what I'm saying? Like the country won't be the same anymore. Like, I don't know. That's just how I mean, some people, I know some of y'all might say, oh, you know, you're just being negative and stuff like that. You don't know what you're talking about. But that's just how I'm thinking. Like, the more people is more problems. More problems, going to be more crimes, and it's going to be, I don't know. Too much people, it's just, yeah. It's going to be problems.
There are an estimated 900,000 Aboriginals in Australia. That's around 3% of the total population. In New Australia, this would mean that the Aboriginal population would increase to nearly 50 million, more than the entire population of Spain. Australia has just 5 cities with a population greater than 1 million. They are Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide. Together combined, they have a population of around 15 million or so. Again, for reference, China has 4 individual cities with a higher population than these 5 cities combined. Australia's east coast would become utterly unrecognisable, as the country's most populated region would see infrastructure.
You see, more buildings. You're gonna see more buildings top of other buildings.
Growth like nothing we've ever seen before in human history, catering for around 13 million people today to over 800 million in New Australia. Now, do you think the inhospitable regions of Australia will become superpopulated? Well, even with a population increase of 55 times, probably not. Humans always have and always will flock to coastal regions of countries for the sheer fact that importing and exporting of goods is infinitely easier. Therefore, New Australia would likely follow the same path, just how, like modern-day China, sees the vast majority of its population situated on its east coast. Very few people live in its western provinces. Cities would pop up left, right and centre in New Australia. Well, mainly along the east and south.
There'll be cities everywhere. Like I said, there's gonna be buildings on top of buildings. Okay, now because nowadays people can't really afford housing right now. People are renting right now because, you know, the cost of living is high. So yeah, it's gonna be more cities. It's gonna be cities everywhere.
South coast. Not only cities, but infrastructure such as railway, roads and airports would be essential to transport this sheer amount of people. Now, it's not just Australia that would change dramatically if this scenario was to actually happen. Australia's brother and pretty much only neighbour, New Zealand, would see gigantic demand for emigration and likely have a significant boost to its economy due to huge increase in trade and tourism. Other countries across Australasia, Micronesia and beyond would also be inundated with tourists, which would boost their economy but also likely cause irreversible ecological damage. Australia has a very healthy and strong economy. For a country with such a relatively small population that finds itself isolated from the rest of the world's economy, it certainly punches above its weight. It ranks as the 14th largest economy on Earth, placing them above the likes of Mexico, a country with a significantly larger population that shares a land border with the US, the world's largest economy. Although not a fair or balanced calculation, if we were to theoretically multiply Australia's GDP by the same amount we multiplied its population to match China by, that's around 55 times. Then its GDP would skyrocket from around 1.7 trillion US dollars to over 93 trillion US dollars. Now, of course, this is absolutely not how this would work whatsoever, so take it with a pinch of salt. Now, if we were to say half this figure, which would now give the Aussies a GDP of around 45 trillion, this seems much more reasonable. Australia actually has a very small yet efficient and effective military. At just 60,000 active personnel, it is completely and utterly dwarfed by armies like, say, the US, India or China. However, if we were to multiply this 60,000 strong active personnel, New Australia would have the largest army in the world at around 3.3 million. If we were to take reserve military into account, of which Australia has around 30,000 personnel, even after multiplying by 55 times, it still would not be the largest, as North Korea, South Korea, Vietnam and India would all have more soldiers. Australia having a population size of that of China's would be incomprehensibly detrimental to the land, biodiversity and ecology of this beautiful country. Australia prides itself on being such a large, almost untouched country filled with flora and fauna. So much so that it has one of, if not the strictest border controls in the world, not allowing any form of foreign seeds or foods into the country. Now, housing, feeding and having suitable infrastructure for 1.4 billion people would see the destruction of Australia's beautiful landscapes. Not only this, but the noise, air and light pollution from so many humans would utterly destroy the ecological equilibrium. The Great Barrier Reef is unfortunately already dying and has lost the majority of its
not going to be the same
coral.
at all.
Now imagine the increased pollution that would enter these waters with this many extra people.
How beautiful that is.
Sentence to the world's largest living organism. Wildlife across the country would see a major blow and decline too, as habitats would be destroyed in order to build infrastructure. Currently, there are around 20 million vehicles on Aussie roads. Times this by 55 and we could see 1 billion vehicles across the country. Levels of roadkill and destruction from pollution would annihilate the Australian wildlife. As Australia's largest exports come from mining, gas and meat, these exports will be amplified significantly, again causing major damage to the ecosystems of this country. So it is without a shadow of doubt that if given Australia's current state, but with 55 times more people, they will be the most powerful, richest and advanced country on Earth. Not only this, but Australia's remoteness and geography would make it the most difficult country on Earth to conquer, essentially granting them the sole world superpower status. Even the US will be far out of its depth competing with New Australia. So there we have it, that's what potentially New Australia could look like. Let us know your thoughts.
The more people, the more problems is going to happen. I guaranteed. Because you have to make room for these people. You gotta make room for them, and the cost of living is is so expensive now. Like the cost of living is very high right now. People are not getting the jobs they want, so there's gonna be more people, more problems. You gotta find housing for these people. That's all I can say. It's gonna be more problems. And some of the countries have some beautiful landscape. What do you call it? Not landscape. Is it called landscape? You know what I mean with the, like, oh my God. I'm trying to find the word. I can't even bring the word up. I forgot the name of it. You know what I'm talking about. It's just not going to be the same. But comment below. Let me know how you feel about this. Do you agree with me or you think it'd probably be better? I don't know. Just let me know how you feel below. But anyway, make sure you subscribe to my channel. So go down there and subscribe and check these videos out. And I'll see you lovely people. Take care and have a good, happy holiday. Because Christmas is like how many days? I think Christmas is like 6. We have 6 more days of Christmas, right? Because today's Monday. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6. Yeah, 6 more days of Christmas. So have a good one. Peace.